Hello and welcome to Berry Aftercare. I am Dr. Connie Stapleton. In case you haven't met me yet, I'm pretty sure we have met somewhere along the way. And I want you to do yourself a favor and thank yourself for taking the time to invest in yourself. And that is actually the topic of this week's videos, self-care, which really means investing in yourself. And specifically, I'm going to talk about how engaging in self-care is critical to your weight loss process, and especially when it comes to maintaining that weight loss, because that's what it's all about after all, right? So self-care is part of the healthy lifestyle you've got to develop regardless of how you choose to lose weight. So whether you're, you've done the yo-yo dieting or had weight loss surgery or have worked with a weight loss program, a medically supervised program, however you've lost weight, the goal is maintenance. So you want to keep this weight off. And the only way to do that is by changing your lifestyle or developing the healthy habits that create a new lifestyle. And engaging in self care is one of those habits. So, we're going to talk about the importance of self care, what it is, and what it's not. In addition, we're going to talk about why self care is so important, not only generally speaking, but why it matters when it comes to weight loss and especially, as I said, weight maintenance. Then we'll talk about in what areas of life does self care matter and why do so many people fail to engage in healthy self care behavior? What is that about, right? What is the connection of not taking care of yourself and weight or possibly weight regain? Finally, what are the most important tuck into your brain messages and what are some things that you can do to improve your self care? So let's get started. What is self care? What is it not? Well, basically, it's what we've already said. It means doing things. There's my dog. Lay down, Darla. Doing things for yourself, taking time for yourself, and engaging in activities or behaviors or relaxation or learning self help skills or um, stress relief ways, anything that helps you to live well and improve both your physical health and your mental health. So it's basically focusing on you, which I know is really, really hard for a lot of people to do because we're very focused on doing things for others, caring for others. What self care is not, and I think this is where people kind of tend to go in their mind, is they think about self care as self indulgence. Like, oh my gosh, I have to spend a whole bunch of money. If I'm going to engage in self care, it's getting a 2 hour massage, which is going to cost $200, or having a mani and a pedi, which is also going to cost a pretty penny. So it doesn't have to be anything that costs any money. Self care may be going outside, sitting for 5 minutes on a swing, and soaking up some vitamin D. So it's just taking some time for yourself. And this is really important because it helps you to center yourself and it helps you be more accessible to other people. So in the world of weight loss and weight maintenance, it's important to take care of yourself because one of the things that self-care has been shown to do, and this is well researched, is that it improves your long-term health. What that means is you're going to live longer. And that's important. When people come into their pre-surgical evaluations, they tell me they want to live a healthier life, they want to live longer, and they want to have a better quality of life. I'll tell you, engaging in self-care is a direct way to get to both of those things. And I will also tell you that if you take time to engage in self-care, it will benefit your weight loss and it will for sure help you maintain your weight loss. Let's talk about specifics and how those things are two connected, how those things are connected. This is interesting because, self-care, I guess it's always been a topic, but it's been more and more researched and looked into. Here's a little interesting tidbit for you. People, according to Google Trends, the number of searches for self care has more than doubled since 2015. So, in the last several years, people are like, I've got to be taking better care of myself. It may be because they're running into some health problems, or they're just hearing more about this, or their friends are talking about self-care and they don't know what it is. But tonight we're going to talk about you taking care of yourself. So, how does engaging in self care matter, especially when it comes to weight loss? But for most people, we do. We want to live healthier, we want to live longer. And that's whether or not you're active in a weight loss program or a weight maintenance program. We all want to live longer and live happier lives. So, engaging in self care, here's what it does. And this is research. So, this isn't just blah, blah, psychobabble, but it helps us to manage stress, helps lower risk of illness, helps you increase your energy. Who doesn't need that? And if you're a weight loss patient, this is critical information, helps you make better decisions. That's something that's pretty critical when you're trying to lose weight and keep your weight off, because sometimes it's really hard to make healthy decisions, especially if you've got a history of being an emotional eater. So anything we can do to calm ourselves down, to promote relaxation, to promote increased energy and clear our thoughts so we can make better decisions is going to be a benefit. And yet, and we'll get to this, so many people refuse to take time for themselves. So if you are interested in weight loss and you are interested in weight maintenance, which if you're listening to this podcast or watching this video, I'm assuming you're interested in those things. Here's the reason, or many reasons, why engaging in self care should be of great interest to you. So, there's been a lot of studies done on this, and a lot of them show that engaging in self care, and we'll talk about specific examples of what that means, but it reduces your levels of stress. This is important because when people regain, and I ask them, what was going on that led to your regain? Almost everybody says either life or stress. But either way, they typically use those words interchangeably. Life happened, stress occurred in their lives, and they returned to eating in response to stress. So, if engaging in self care reduces stress and reducing stress decreases emotional or stress eating, hello, that's going to help with weight loss and weight maintenance. So, that's really important. And increasing social support, which we've talked about in a lot of prior videos, the critical nature of having healthy support, engaging in support groups. Did I lose my microphone? Nope. Engaging in support groups, engaging online with support, maybe forming a support group of your own, an exercise group, any kind of social support with people who understand the struggles that you're going through. That's a great way to decrease stress and feel supported and have additional accountability. And these things help with weight loss and weight maintenance. Studies also show that self care can help maintain stable weight because people who engage in self care have an overall sense of better well being. We are a stressed out nation, right? We are stressed out moms and dads and workers and partners and daughters and sons and parents. And we are a stressed out group of people. So when we can lower our stress and have a better sense of well being and not get our undies in a wad so much and not be, as my father used to say, all drawn up in the arse, then we are going to make better decisions and do healthier things for our bodies and for our weight. Also, ladies, pay attention. Research confirms that women who are neglectful with self care often suffer from weight related issues. Now, listen, I hear this every day, all the time, every day, especially from women. They're working full time. No offense, men, and I agree. This pertains to men too. But the research here was done on women. Women are working. They're taking care of kids. Even if they're working full time at home, as in being a homemaker and taking care of children, that's a full time job. And I don't think there's anything more stressful than being a stay at home mom. I was not cut out for that. And I swear I have tremendous respect for stay at home moms, stay at home dads. Anybody who is with kids all day long is stressed out, right? But when we neglect to take time from caring for families, for being in a relationship, from being an employee, from taking care of aging parents, from being a good friend, from all the demands on us, and we don't take the time for ourselves, we burn out. And that's important because when we burn out, a lot of people turn to food for a source of pleasure, a reward of sorts. So we're so busy and we take care of so many others. You've got to recognize, and this to me is the crux of the matter. You've got to recognize, you being everybody, we, I, us, we need to recognize that we are as important as all the other people and the things that you're so focused on and so dedicated to and spend so much time and energy taking care of people. And I've got a hunch, which I've talked about in a lot of the videos from the past, that some of this business of not taking time for yourself, not putting the same kind of care in for yourself that you do for other people, is because somewhere, either at the forefront or in the recesses of your mind, there's a belief that you're not worth taking the time for. I think that is critical. And we're going to come back to that because I really, really do think that that's important. So it's true. We're busy all day. We're all too busy. And we have limited energy and we run out of steam. And when you're carrying extra weight, that energy is limited to begin with because your body is just exhausted, right? So we have to operate with whatever finite resources we have. So, if you put all of your resources into other people and you don't pay attention to what you're needing, and like I said, it doesn't have to be Herculean things, it doesn't have to be costly. It could be just saying, Mommy's taking a time out, or everybody at the office is going to have to solve problems on their own for 5 minutes because I'm going into the bathroom and I'm going to lock the door and I'm going to pull my feet up and put them on the toilet so nobody knows I'm even in here. And if they look under the stall, they won't know it's me. And I'm going to hide for 5 minutes. And in that 5 minutes, I'm not going to be on my phone. I'm not going to have earbuds in. I'm going to sit and listen to nothing. I'm going to take a moment of stillness for me because I matter. Because you don't want to have burnout. Burnout leads to you being in bed for days because you can't move. Burnout leads to exhaustion. Doing too much leads to physical fatigue. And for a lot of people, eventually, emotional breakdown, whether that's a day or a week or 5 minutes. But it's not good for us. We don't need to get to that point. And if we take just a few minutes out of each day to care for your one and only self, it's going to benefit you. And you know what else is good about that? Because we care so much about others and taking care of them, here's the truth. The more time we invest in taking care of ourselves, and I don't mean to the exclusion of others, I don't mean as a selfish human being who says, leave me alone, it's all about me. Not talking about that. I'm talking about tending to your responsibilities, taking care of the people who are under your care, but also taking a little bit of time out for yourself. What this does, it puts you in a better state of mind. Remember that better sense of well being, physically, emotionally, mental health wise, psychologically, spiritually. You just have a better overall sense of well being. And why that is important, for many reasons, but also it makes you a better person to interact with those other people you care for. Because what do you do when you're stressed and you're tired and you're burned out? You snap at other people. You don't want to snap at them, and then you lay in bed feeling guilty for having snapped at them. So if you take a few minutes to take care of yourselves, you're less likely to take out your frustration and your burnout on other people. And that makes it a win-win, right? And we tell ourselves there's not time, but I guarantee you, taking care of yourself leaves you more time. But nobody's going to do it for you. Nobody can do this for you. You have to make yourself a priority like you make other people. And I want you to know, seriously, we can find time. Think about maybe eliminating some minutes from gossiping with people in the break room, or perhaps spending maybe just a few minutes less on social media, or perhaps not watching a recorded show, but sitting outside for a few minutes, or watching the show and sitting outside for a few minutes. But it doesn't take that long. It's a matter of making the time. We make time for other people. We make time for the shows because they let us chill out, but not really. And that may be a form of self care, but there are other ways, right? So, what areas of life is this self care important? Well, if you've read my book, Eat It Up, I talk about how carrying extra weight has a negative effect on every area of your life: physical, spiritual, emotional, social, financial in some cases. And the same is true with self care. So we can engage in self care physically, socially, emotionally, spiritually, financially. Self care can be in every area of our lives. And again, it only takes a few minutes. So it's not like, oh my God, more things to put on the to do list. That's not what I'm talking about. But if there's something that taking just a few minutes will do to elevate every area of your life, is there a legitimate reason for not doing it? No, there's not. I'm just saying. So when you feel better about yourself, you're nicer to be around other people, and that's a true win-win. Now, I'm going to talk about the World Health Organization, the WHO, WHO, not the band, the WHO, the World Health Organization. What they say is that self-care, it's more than just doing things like, the spa, like we talked about, but it's also personal factors. And I've talked to you about this before. Think Gotta Do Ems, not just the physical Gotta Do Ems, but also the emotional and psychological Gotta Do Ems. So they being the World Health Organization, talks about self-care in areas like self-empowerment, meaning I'm going to set some boundaries for myself. I'm going to say no and I'm going to follow through. I'm going to tell people I'm not available for 5 minutes. I'm going to tell my family I'm going in my treadmill for 20 minutes and don't bother me. I'm going to, so self empowerment, self reliance is a big deal. Nobody's going to go to the gym with me. Oh, well, I could use that as an excuse not to go. I'm relying on myself. I'm going anyway. Self reliance is a wonderful way of engaging in self care. Autonomy. Did we not talk about these exact same things in the video we did on the psychological gotta do's? I'm taking care of myself because I matter. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to sit around and wait for anybody else. Autonomy. I'm in charge of my own life. You're not the boss of me. Self efficacy. Remember that? That's on that list too. And I swear to you, I did not look at this list way back when I did that talk about the psychological gotta do's. But self efficacy means I think I can. So taking some time for positive self talk, I think I can do this. I don't think I can walk 30 miles, but I think I can walk 10. And doing that improves your sense of, I think I can, and taking personal responsibility. So all of these things are examples of healthy self care, but they're also gotta do ems for anybody interested in keeping that weight off. So, in addition, there's the physical gotta do ems, drinking the water, taking the time for yourself because you matter to plan your meals, taking the time to take that 20 minutes for yourself to go for the walk. Those things are examples of self care. Now, if you're thinking about self care as the trip to the spa or the haircut or the nails, this is a chance to expand that definition of self care and realize every time you do something that is to improve your health, it's an example of self care. So I want you to think about all the things that your bariatric program and your team and your professionals are telling you to do. And every time you do one of those, that's increasing your self efficacy because you are engaging in self care. So think about it that way, kind of killing two birds with one stone. And you might want to take the time to engage in, and I call it immersing yourself, and just taking 5 minutes to look up healthy coping skills, how to uh, refrain from engaging in emotional eating, right? And that leads us to emotional self care. So if you're a highly stressed person and a lot of the people I talk about are stress eaters, then an act of self-care would be to look up that list of how to deal with stress, how to refrain from emotional eating. And you can go on my website, www.conniestapletonphd.com, and there are two different handouts that I have on there about how to refrain from engaging in emotional eating. Your act of self care would be going to the website and downloading the copy. That might take you a minute. So that's an act of self care. The idea here is give yourself credit for the things you do for yourself. We might say, "Oh, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to take care of myself." But if you think about your self-care throughout the day, which might be just downloading a form, it might be just stepping outside for 30 seconds, it might be getting up from your sedentary job once every hour just to stretch. That is self-care. So it doesn't have to be a grand hoop-de-da, go for a 2-week vacation, although that would be glorious. It can be 30-second increments of small things that say, I matter. I matter. And that's back to the point that I want to make about why so many people fail to engage in self-care. What is the deal with that? And what's the connection of not engaging in self-care and weight struggles? Because there is a connection. And I think I don't have to spell it out for you. But if we're not caring for ourselves, how likely is it we're taking the time to make healthy food or find healthy food choices? If we're not engaging in healthy self care, how likely is it we're taking time to take a few minutes for exercise or sit outside and soak up a few minutes of sunshine or sit for 2 minutes and just focus on your breathing? If we don't think we're worth that, if our identity is I don't matter, then there's a problem because we're not going to do it. So, to me, the most important thing you can do to increase your actions of self care is to believe you're worth it. And how do you do that? You tell yourself over and over and over and over. No, it's not easy. It requires effort, but you can do this. So here's one of the things I really love is when I find another professional who says almost the exact same thing I do. Not because I don't believe myself, but I want you to know it's not just me saying this. A lot of this comes from research and other really forward thinking people. And I do mean that because a lot of professionals don't think this way. And I'm going to tell you I do. And I'm glad about that. And I'm proud of myself for that. And there are a lot of them a lot of them others. There are a lot of others out there. So I found an article that featured an interview with a psychologist named Gary Foster. And Gary Foster happens to be a professor of psychology at the Perelman School of Medicine at the University of Pennsylvania. He's also been the chief scientific officer at Weight Watchers. So this guy is real into the psychology of weight loss. And listen to what he said. I'm going to read you all sorts of things he said, and you tell me if these don't sound familiar to you because you've heard them on Barry Aftercare videos and podcasts. So he says all sorts of things. He says, while what you eat and how much you move are necessary factors for a successful weight loss journey, they are not sufficient. For sure, they are not sufficient. In other words, doing what the dietitian tells you is critical. You've got to do that. Making sure you exercise is critical. You've got to do that. Putting the right foods into your mouth at the right portion sizes is critical. You've got to do that, but it's not enough because guess what? Here's what Dr. Foster says. Contrary to mainstream belief, your mindset, which is how you think about your personal journey and yourself, is actually the foundation for developing healthy behaviors that become healthy habits in the long term. I could not be happier to read this to you. So let me break that down. Contrary to mainstream belief, you're not going to hear this in weight loss programs. You're not going to hear this from many of your bariatric professionals. A lot of people aren't focused on this. But your mindset, how you think, is the foundation for developing these healthy habits, these healthy behaviors. So if you don't think you can, you can't. If you don't think you're worth it, it's not going to happen. So if your mindset is all muddled up, because of damaging messages from the past or self-destructive ideas that you say to yourself or constant negative, critical self-talk, shedding pounds is going to prove to be very, very difficult. Keeping them off will be even more difficult. Because again, I tell you, if your identity is such that you're not worth it, you're not going to engage in these behaviors. So the most powerful tool of self-care that you can engage in is reminding yourself that you are worthwhile, that you are important. So Dr. Foster goes on to say, the most frequent off-ramps to a weight loss and wellness journey occur when unrealistic, irrational, and often negative thoughts lead to disappointment and ultimately abandoning your goals. For a journey to be successful, the process should feel positive, not punitive. In other words, when you fall off the wagon, if you eat more than you should, if you've engaged in too much of something that you think you shouldn't, and you start beating yourself up about it, you're on a downward spiral, and that's only going to lead to further downward spiraling. Not that that's not going to happen, but what you've got to do is stop it then and there and say, I'm not going down that road. That road is not an option for me. I will pick myself and get right back up on this. He goes on to say that you've got to see, he says, listening to the voice in your head that's tough and overly critical isn't going to get you anywhere. We have to learn to engage in self-compassion, which I'm going to talk about more in just a minute. He says, you've got to see you're somebody who's worth caring for. I say that all the time. You've got to see yourself as somebody who's worth caring for. You've got to tell yourself, I'm worth it, just like my kids are worth it, just like my spouse is worth it, just like my parents are worth it. I am also worth caring for, as opposed to thinking about yourself as somebody who's deficient, not worthy. That is going to get you nowhere in a hurry. So this means learning to treat yourself with kindness, especially when you stumble. So you've got to be compassionate and go, that's all right. Back up we go. That's all. When your toddler was learning to walk and they fell down, you didn't say, well, you're never going to make it, you loser. You helped them back up on their feet and they'd fall down over and over and over. But when they would get up, you would praise them. So when you stumble, get yourself right back up and praise yourself for doing so, just like a toddler. But you've got to prioritize your needs. Practicing self-care means prioritizing your needs, placing a higher value on yourself. But a lot of people think, oh my God, I couldn't do that. That's selfish. I could never do that. Well, you have a choice. Don't do it and struggle more with your weight because you don't think you're important, or change your mind about that. And you have the choice to change your mind about that. You do matter. You don't have to put yourself as the center of the universe. God knows that happens. Just put yourself on a level playing field with the other people you care for, right? It's not your only priority. It's not being selfish, but it's win-win. You matter and I matter. Honestly, self-care means saying, I matter. Darla, lay down. Poor baby, she's in her kennel. So self-compassion. And this is a quote from Chad Brandt, who's also a behavior therapist, a psychologist at an institute in Houston. He says it's easy to fall into self-criticism when you make mistakes. However, being compassionate with yourself can help boost your motivation and keep you on track. He says to practice self-compassion, work on reframing the negative self-talk. You've heard me say this 1,000 times. So change the self-talk. So, for example, instead of thinking, I'm going to mess this up again, or I just blew it, right? Or can't do this, shift your tone to more accepting thoughts like, oof, this is tough. This is tough, but I can do tough things. I have a client for real, and she says, I got mad skills. And she and her husband joke about that all the time. She's like, I've got mad skills. And that makes her laugh, but it also reminds her she does have the skills to do this. So think of something that takes negative thoughts and turns them into something more positive. You can even say it's okay to feel defeated sometimes because you will, but I'll keep showing up. I'll keep showing up. So my words to you are, When people you love come to you and say, I did this and I'm sorry, chances are you're pretty willing to forgive them. It may take a little bit of time in some cases. But look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm sorry for all the times I've talked to you so critically. I'm sorry for all the times I negated you. I'm sorry for all the times I said harsh, mean things to you. And you're looking at yourself saying this. I'm sorry for giving up on you. We can do better. We will do better because we are worth it. You are worth it. I am worth it. So, self forgiveness, my goodness, is so important. And self compassion. How is it you can be compassionate to other people and yet treat yourself so cruelly? So, one of the goals is, you know, be kind to yourself. Think about when you think about your disease, don't say it's all my fault. Think about the fact that there are a lot of components of obesity that you have no influence over. Genetics, the home you grew up in, the culture you grew up in. You couldn't control any of that. Also, take responsibility for the things you do influence and can influence. You can influence your attitude. You can influence your ability and willingness to have compassion and forgiveness for yourself. You can influence what goes into your mouth. You can influence if you choose to exercise. So don't beat yourself up over the things you can't do anything about, but take responsibility for the things you can. So here's your top 3 take home, stick in your brain, and repeat often messages. You're worth it. You're worth taking time for. You're worth saying kind things to. You're worth forgiveness. You're worth compassion. And you are worth taking care of. Repeat, repeat, repeat. You can learn things you don't know. You can learn healthy forms of self care in all areas of your life: financial, spiritual, emotional, psychological, physical, social, educational, and and they can particularly these things taking responsibility for learning these things can help you maintain a healthy weight. And that's really what you want to do because it will improve your life. And you can do it starting now, today, this minute. The third thing is you'll be better able to care for all the other people in your life by learning to take as good of care of yourself as you do of them. So, those 3 things. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of invitations and then tell you what we're going to focus on later this week in the next video. So I'm inviting you, besides encouraging other people to listen to this video, watch the video, listen to the podcast, and join the Berry Aftercare program, I want you to choose one act of self-care to do today and tomorrow, right? Just today and tomorrow. And then later this week, on the second weekly video, part of the Berry Aftercare program, and if you're not a part of the Berry Aftercare program, you're not going to see this video. But if you want to, sign up at www.berryaftercare.com, and then you can hear the second video, which is going to go over specific questions you can ask yourself to figure out where do I need to improve self-care in my life and what are specific ways to do that. Until then, remember that we are talking about your health, which is your responsibility this day and every day. Thank you for taking time for you and engaging in that self-care of listening today. I will see you later in the week. And in the meantime, self-care away. Good night.